Bene, adesso i prossimi relatori, devo dire, insomma, li conosco personalmente da molto tempo e quindi lascio la parola, introduco Yasmine Mahmoudieh. Perdona la pronuncia, sai che ci conosciamo da tanto tempo, ma non c'è verso a pronunciarlo bene il tuo nome. Vieni pure qui. È un architetto che opera a livello internazionale, prevalentemente nel-luxury hospitality, ma non solo. Ha moltissima esperienza, la sua carriera è fatta veramente di realizzazioni molto importanti e un'attenzione veramente vera e da tempi insospettabili verso i temi della sostenibilità, tant'è vero che è conferenziere spesso in moltissimi contesti a livello internazionale su questo tema. E quindi lascio la parola a lei e prego, in English, right? Ok.
Sì. Sì, buonasera. Mi hanno detto devo parlare in inglese, allora se sono domande dopo posso anche rispondere in italiano. So I'm moving over to English. So, I mean, we have seen the beautiful documentary on the sea, and I'm with my company and my team. We are very determined to save the sea and to really see reality how it's developing in the world, and we all have responsibility for being more sustainable. And I think as architects, we have a very important role to play, and to see the things that we don't see, that are invisible but are existing. So I've been working on, I mean, we do hospitality design, we do a lot of different things. We worked for Airbus, A380, airlines, cruise ships, all kinds of projects. But in the last years, I've dedicated a lot of my time, and already actually since decades, on finding innovative materials that are either recycled or organic. So I'm going to show you a few projects, a few case studies. I mean, I'm just running through some projects, but I could have a lecture on each of the materials, which is really researched on not harming our planet, and to see how we can innovate and be creative at the same time without having to go through the typical materials. And it's nice to be here in Sardinia, and when I met Claudia and found out about this amazing company which is taking the earth of Sardinia to produce their products, it's a good example to have to show how we can create beautiful products by respecting the environment. And we know that the world is very beautiful. I'm not one of the ones wanting to go to Mars. I think my life is too short to see the beauty of this world, and I think we have to all think about how we can create something that is exciting at the same time as also beautiful and protecting. So I have created a lot of different projects, even educational areas for children with sustainable materials. Materials very often have toxins that you don't see, but if you do research, you understand why there's a lot of disease in the world. It's coming from food, from environment, but also from materials which are really used in construction very often. I mean, everybody knows like asbesto that's been in a lot of schools in the past, and there's a lot of other materials that have toxins. So I've been invited several places lately, also at the World Economic Forum, to talk about sustainability, and it's a few images from there. But so to really understand what is happening, and there's going to, fortunately, also going to be changes in regulation and governments. We have to re-evaluate the way we live, the way we consume, and also to see how we can protect our environment. And it's actually from nature that I found a lot of amazing materials that we are using in all our projects around the world. And if you really start studying what is happening, it's quite scary. And I think most of us have children, and I think we should leave the world better than we found it for our children. But the facts are that in 2030, there's going to be more plastic in the ocean than fish. And I think, especially being in Sardinia with this most beautiful ocean, where I think the world is still a bit more protected, and it's still, you know, I was yesterday at the beach and it was a beautiful water to have a swim. It's not everywhere like this, sadly, anymore, but it's a big danger to our, you know, to our existence, actually. And so design has a responsibility, and I'm also teaching in several schools. I'm a mentor at the Royal College of Art in London, and I'm very involved in getting the students more into sustainability, and also the hotel students in Lausanne and in the Institut Paul Bocuse in Lyon and Paris, and showing them and giving them you know, input on how we can innovate and also reduce. I mean, with the work we're doing is we're trying to convince our clients to really reduce the CO2 emissions that are coming from construction. 40% of emissions of the world today are coming from the building industry. And I mean, I'm just running through some numbers so that you can really understand the effect of what's happening in the world. And the subject is so big, I can only touch it a bit, but it's also the transportation, how materials are being transported, and it's called so-called embodied carbon. And there's going to be a lot of new also regulations and taxes coming to companies and also to hospitality about it. So it's about understanding that this is reality and we have to act now. And I'm going to show a few projects where, you know, showing what can we do as architects and designers. How can we minimalize, integrate, and also look for materials? I mean, I've been looking for over 20 years to find the materials that I will show you, partly, and they're also very beautiful. It's not just that it's not just a conscious decision to have something that is better for the planet, but I think we even can create beautiful environments in architecture and in design. And I'm running just through a few of these materials that can be used for architecture and for interiors, just to give you an idea of the looks of it and how they are derived, and how this can even, you know, give a lot of room for creativity in our work, which is obviously one of the things that, you know, I think a lot of architecture students and everybody in the field has chosen to dedicate their career to. But finding products that are so exciting to see, and we have materials that can clean the air, that are antibacterial, that are taking away the CO2 from the environment, and also can shield against electrosmog. We have all our devices around us all the time, which is kind of a radiation constantly, and it's not very healthy. So there's all these invisible things that, you know, people don't see, but they're happening, and so you have to look into the invisibility to understand that there's something, you know, around us that is not looking to be a threat, but it's actually quite threatening. And again, I mean, just seeing from nature how we can derive materials, and we work with a lot of artists who are exploring how they can actually innovate materials that can be used in design and construction and architecture. And I think it's just to give you an idea, when you do a lot of research, you find, you know, you start finding companies that have dedicated their life to this, and so that gives a lot of hope, you know, to, I think, to all the younger generations, to see that we have tools and we have materials that are quite exciting. And again, I'm only running through some of the ones that you see here, but it is to show that there are several aspects. The other one that I was very excited about is 3D printing, because it's the most pure way of production. There's no leftover, and specifically we have worked with recycled plastic. We're working at the moment with on testing mycelium, which is the root of fungus, which I think is the most amazing organic material I have seen in my lifetime. And we are starting to do furniture with it, but also to use it for architecture and design. It's still in a very experimental stage, but 3D printing, as I said, is really something that we think can be amazing, because my whole concept of starting this was to say, we do have the plastic around us. We can't magically make it disappear. It's going into oceans in Thailand, in countries who get paid a lot of money to just dump it over. And it is a threat, and we can at least repurpose it. And I think this is what the idea is to repurpose what is already there, but then to substitute it with mycelium. And this is like just one image of mycelium, which can be used and can be grown, and it's moldable and has acoustic qualities, and also takes the CO2 away, and it's fully decomposable, and it's starting to become a serious substitute for plastics, and is already in use in the US for packaging and for fine leather, for actually the fashion industry. But here are just some examples of some artists that have used the material, and here it shows you really the amazing features, the applications, and I just think it's going to be one of the major materials that we hopefully will use in the future. These are just some of the applications where it's starting to grow, saying that fashion and packaging are the most advanced at the moment. So it's about circular economy, and if you design something and you want to, to redo it after a few years, you can practically take the recycled plastic back and reprint it. These are some of our designs, some new designs that are not yet produced. These are the new ones, and I'm showing you the existing ones. So we are creating a collection of furniture, all of 3D printed material from recycled plastic. And I've been invited by Design Miami in Basel to do an exhibition, which I called Flowniversum, like the flow of life and the universe. And it was totally 3D printed. This is actually can be used for architecture. I don't know, it's not really working. But the left wall is it's a bit like an ocean wave that is kind of threatening, is very powerful, and beautiful products come out of it. The flow chair is one product that has won many awards and is going to the museum, the Centre Pompidou in Paris in the next year. And it's really to show that even in architecture and design, we can start using these materials that are all 3D printed, and we, in an NFT collection, which we are dropping later on this year, we're showing this metamorphosis, how the plastic that's floating on the ocean can be repurposed in a certain way, and that it can be used for very beautiful objects and designs. This is the chair that has won quite a lot of awards, and totally printed from recycled plastic, mainly coming from the ocean. We just launched, and some of you were there in Venice, the new chair, which is called Turn Me. It can be a table or a chair, and it's a much more affordable. And I mean, this is just to give you an idea how this 3D printing process is. This is done actually in Spain, outside Madrid, for the flow chair. And also in the children's spaces, we started designing furniture, all sustainable. It doesn't have any glue that's kind of hazardous for children. And we used a lot of companies in Spain, actually, because they had some really interesting materials, but also Italian companies, like the apple leather, the leather from the skin of apple, so like a vegan leather, and creating seating areas. And this is all terrazzo and made of waste wood, and it's actually a British company. And then we designed this kind of furniture for children. It's like the jigsaw table. And this is also, this series also going to the Centre Pompidou, which is opening a whole place for children's furniture. Metamorphosis is an exhibition that we are planning about the metamorphosis, the transformation to more sustainable materials. And we also are going into the metaverse, but using the metaverse more as a visionary place to show what we are able to do. Now, coming back to Sardinia, where we are, I don't know, but I hope that many of you know that you have a very special place in Sardinia, which is one of the blue zones. And as we also work on wellness concepts for hospitality all over the world, and always trying to innovate what is going to be the longevity, and how can we get the experience of living healthier longer into hospitality. I've studied quite intensely the blue zones, and in Sardinia there's one, I think it's 3 hours from here, where the people are over 100, very healthy. And what is the recipe of it? It's the plant-based diet, but it's also the activities, the social environment, obviously with the beautiful nature, reduced stress, but also sense of purpose. And how can you transfer that into an environment of hospitality? Since hospitality, 60–70% of our projects are in hospitality, we always try to create something that will give you a transformational experience, so that you go there and you come back as a better human being in mind, body, and spirit. And I think because of this whole event here, it's about celebrating the Mediterranean and understanding how beautiful the Mediterranean is. And again, in this beautiful documentary, we're seeing that we have to take this into consideration, and how do we integrate it? Now, for me, it's always, what can I do more to remember the places that the people visiting our projects coming to? And for me, it's multisensory design. So I've been working since 2005 with sound and scent. And Sizzle told us she's a very famous scent artist in the world, and we work also with sound artists and try to integrate sound. And this is a bit about digital imagery. It's back projection in, for example, instead of having a fish tank with real fish, this is a back projection of fish. And this is a quite old project. We have done it outside Paris, and it's like over 14 years old. So it's quite old, but I think it will still, even today, it can, show a lot of innovation. I'm going further because it will take too long. There's many different applications. This is a restaurant outside Barcelona, where the restaurant was very narrow, and we wanted to create this depth, and it's all about poetry, which is projected. And again, I'm going to the next one. We also want to create really unique experiences. When you put sensors on plants, they create music. So this is a bit like an idea of a little concert in a hotel, where it's really an interesting experience for hoteliers to see how we can work with nature even to create a beautiful sound. And this is just one example. Or, for example, some of you maybe know Rafik Anadol. He's a quite known artist, and he has this hallucinations artwork with sound, which are very powerful. And taking this into the context of a hotel and working, we are very often working with artists to the, specifically for the location, and saying, well, this is a beautiful location. This is where we have to get inspired and do something, but do something more than the normal thing, because, again, this whole idea of the memory, that you remember a place that you have been to. And we were also asked to do an exhibition in London with penguin books. I don't know if there's sound. And the idea was to work with 3 books from Rumi, Plato, and from a German artist. And it's an immersive sound going behind the walls that you don't see. It's a new system, but I'm not sure if we hear it. Can we see if we can?
Touches, not walks in dark.
So I've practically chosen from the. You can leave it a bit. I can speak louder. You can leave it a bit. I've chosen mantras from the books, and it's a bit like a IMAX cinema. It goes behind the rooms, behind the walls, and it's very mesmerizing, and it's all the poetry of the books. So this was our interpretation, how to integrate Penguin Books, which is the biggest UK publishing company. And you have different sounds for sleeping, for the morning, and you could control it all by an iPad or an iPhone. And I'm working on my own luxury hotel brand, sustainable hotel brand, the Y Hotel. And this is a bit something that's going to be outside city centers, where it's about, we call it material wellness. So all the materials are tested, and it takes too long to explain how we test it, but we have a way to test them, that they are non-toxic, that they come from nature, that they're recycled or organic, and creating a space where it's really to let your soul go, and that it can be outside many cities in the world, where you're 1-2 hours away from a metropolitan city and completely can be in a different environment. But it will also have the opportunity that you have workspaces so you can do, especially, I think after pandemic, many people didn't want to go back all the time to their office, or other people, they work and travel at the same time. And so it is to give you an idea of a place where you can stay, and it's a mixture of cottages that you can sell and lease back to the hotel. So it's not just a typical hotel operation, it's a more interesting combination. And again, the idea is to take this hotel also as a virtual hotel in order to make it more known much quicker than when you just, you have a brand that starts to launch one after the other, but in the metaverse, which is going to be the future. In some way, it depends how you use it, where you could already, get interested in locations, and it's for me, it's like a branding of it. And I think the most important is to see that we have, when you create a space, to really come to all the benefits for human beings, which means, what you see, what inspires you, what is something that is memorable in your experience, what is something that you see around. So we don't want to copy one hotel and just place it in different places in the world. But when we do a project, we really study the country, the culture, the history, and then we come, however, with new eyes, with new vision, because otherwise anybody could do it, and come up and would take the place to the next, to the next level. So not just to have something that is already existing, but to take it further. And I think this is the most important. I mean, there's many projects that you can see on our website where we have integrated this in a lot of beach locations around the world. But it's always about creating a sense of purpose and creating something that will surprise the hotel guests and make them a memorable experience, instead of just knowing that that you have been at a place that could have been somewhere else. And I think, especially being here in the Mediterranean in a beautiful landscape, you have to let that reflected. But sustainability goes also about it's also about ourselves. How do we keep sustainable? And just maybe like a last sentence, I've just been at one of the Wim Hof retreats, the Iceman. I don't know if you know him, but it's where you do breathing in the morning and you go into ice cold water for 15 minutes. But it was an amazing experience, and seeing that how this can boost your immune system, and I think it should be done in many places around the world. So for us, sustainability is local culture, local food, local materials, innovation, and sense. If you have sense, if we work on a scent for a hotel brand, we always go to the local sense and then work with these artists around the world to make it really special. Well, I'm happy to answer questions later on, and thank you for your attention. Thanks.